Pencil. This is a spruce body for, well, it's a kind of test to see if the spruce is any good. It's we cut this last summer. We had one of the chaps that I work with had a sawmill out, and this was very nice quality timber. So I thought I would take a couple of boards from it, or one very long board in fact, to see if I could get it to dry without splitting, and that seems to have happened. So I want to try it. It's a very resonant wood, this. I don't know whether that really... well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll build it, and if it's no good, I'll just take it down as experience. I mean, I'm just prototyping this body here, this body type. This is a very contoured body type. This was the one I made last year, which is really comfortable to play actually, so I'm in two minds whether to make a new body for this one or whether to put butterflies to stop the splits. This is one piece of pine, also very, very tight grained, so this is quite a heavy guitar. This is tight grained spruce, but it doesn't have the harpics in it, so it's not nearly as heavy. The wood, I don't know, it might behave like a chambered guitar, we'll see. I'll put it together and see what it sounds like. First and foremost, I'm just taking the dimensions from this guitar and putting them onto this one. So the cavity here is 6 centimetres over. So it's going to be, that was 3.5 centimetres wide. So it's going to be here somewhere. That's good enough for now, just so that I know which direction to do the drilling. I might try and drill that from there actually. I don't know. We'll see. I don't put the direction on. I can mark that direction on the top there, that tells me which direction to do the drilling. And then the distance. That was 6 in from the edge. And then 3 wide. I don't need to do all this explanation here. It's kind of self-explanatory. Drill there, drill through here between those two. I'm going to offset the drilling slightly because there's a very thin piece here where the adjuster for the truss rod is. I don't want that to break and split out, so I'm going to put it on the side. What that's been cutting into, but it's completely blunt. I might just give it a little go over with the file. It's got to be better than it was. Mark on there. You can tell me how deep I've gone. Again, don't need to say this really, it's self-explanatory, isn't it? There we go. You got the idea. that's ridden up there, so I'll use super glue to hold that down. Won't use more araldite for that. So the araldite has filled up the space between the silver and the wood, which is really as much as I wanted it to do in a way, because as much as it's can be used with success as the glue, it does often crack quite easily on metal. So that's all right there. And I kind of expected that to happen a little bit. It happened at the other end on this part. Is all right anyway, after all. So that's 1,200 grit. And I think I might have some that's 2,000 or so, which I'll use, and then after that it's just polishing with teacup, something like that. So that 1,200 grit was the strongest I had, so now I'm going to try just with paper. This isn't jewellery, so at a certain point I'll just let it be. I don't want to take it up to total as shiny as it can become, because you won't be able to do this polishing when the strings are on anyway, so it will just tarnish and go black, which is fine. That's glue on there maybe. Still a little bit of glue here and there. I could probably just use a rubber to get some of the black off there. I'm not sure what paper. I think it's something like 2,500. I think is the equivalent of. But don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. I think that's almost good enough now to start just using polish and cloth. So that's with a rubber, and the rubber cleans up the woodwork quite nicely. Try with a little bit of brass rubbing compound and some cotton. So this is the bit that might make the woodwork really dirty, so I think I might actually tape it up again before I start. This is a kind of pumice rich copper polish. Right, and then the last one will be silver, which has very fine, again I think it's a pumice based one, but this time it's very fine. I'm not sure about the chemicals in these things, but this is just the classic silver. Although all of these products are no longer as good as they used to be because they've kind of decided to try and make more profit out of them. And they got full of horrible thinners that they never used to have. Or at least they had thinners before, but not such horrible ones. I'm not pressing too hard, I'm just letting the product do the job. There are perhaps a couple of light scratches there, but I'm not going to worry too much about it because I've still got quite a lot of work to do on this guitar, and it's quite likely that it'll get scratched more before it's finished. But truth is that now it's pretty shiny, so I'm going to go in. It's more shiny than the old bit that I did last time. I mean the top piece, this one. Now this wood isn't treated with anything, so obviously it is possible that it gets quite dirty doing this polishing stuff, so try with a rubber just to clean up the woodwork again. Right, it's good enough for me anyway, that's fine. So I need to go and find some super glue to glue down this edge. Make sure that's flooded in there. That's good. Bubbling out, so it must be good. I'm holding that down tight. Now it would be nice to have some accelerator. Seemed to work all right actually. I'll let that set for a bit before I start scratching around too much. I've marked with preliminary marks the string positions, but I haven't set the depth yet. I might planish the silver out a little bit more there because there's still a tiny little gap. But planishing is is using that part of the hammerhead, and it just with these small dents you can stretch the metal out. It's quite good if you want to fill up gaps and stuff. So this is just, I'm doing the back edges. I'll do the front edge with the needle files that are specially made for it, but they don't actually bite very much, those things. So I'm doing the back edge with a proper file. And I'm following the direction to the actual posts. They're not straight. They're slightly fanned towards the posts. So there's nothing wrong with them being wide at the back edge, but it's a good idea that they're snug at the front edge at least. I'm going to do some decorative carving. I'm going to go over to a wider file. It's a chainsaw, broken chainsaw file. So the actual depth of the fine tuning and the depth of the cuts there, I'm going to wait until I've got more strings on. So that's a much later process. But since I was filming, I've changed the since I was filming last, I've changed the machine heads to ones that lock, and I think I prefer the silver colour with this guitar. The black, there's a bit too much contrast. The next step on building this guitar is to make the holes for the tunematic bridge. There are quite a few lines drawn up on here, and I'm going to explain what they are, how I work out exactly where to put it on this multi-scale fretboard, multi-scale length guitar. The first line on the outside edge is made running along the length of the neck, one on that side, one on that side, following the line of the neck. That gives you kind of double check to see that your centre line is in the correct place. 3.2. 3.1. 3.1. So my centre line is in the correct place. That's what I've used for routing all of these parts, both the neck pocket and the humbucker. This is a guitar for a child, so it's only going to have one humbucker. It's going to keep it simple. But it is a multi-scale fretboard, so it has to have a diagonal bridge. And this is how you work out where exactly to drill. The next line in here, from those outside lines on the outside of the fret, that's where the string is going to be. So I've run a line based on putting the actual nut, the actual bridge, exactly between the two outside lines of the fretboard, and then marking off where the strings actually are. So each of those dots there show where the strings will be, and then the diagonal line here is achieved by using my the figures for where all of the frets are going to be, which I got using an online scale calculator, scale length calculator. 63 centimetres from the nut to the bridge there, and from the zero, perpendicular to that zero at the top, at the baseline here, 62.25, which is actually 7.5 millimetres less than that from where the actual nut is, for reasons I won't go into right now. Suffice it to say, it's 61.5 centimetres. So that gives you a dot exactly where the string, where the strings, the outside two strings, the two E strings, intersect that line. So I draw a diagonal between them, which extends further out from there, and it's on that line that this that the feet for this, or the posts that this tunematic bridge sit in, are going to be. So I can line up the bridge with the line of the strings, so they're in exactly the right place, and then look down, and I'm just using sight line with one eye. I close one eye, and then I split the circle in two. That tells me exactly I mean, I could just use, I don't know, I could measure that. Let's have a look. Centre. Again, I mean, I'd have to just judge it, because you can't really, looks like it's 73 millimetres centre. Well, those lines say 74. There's probably it's probably written down in some documentation for this bridge exactly how far it is. 74 looks actually better. So those lines were put on the outside of the bridge, so I'm going to have to square those over. And then I can check this afterwards when putting the bridge back on, just to make sure I've got the right line. I think, you know, a tiny little bit of inaccuracy, the fractions of a millimetre, I don't think they're that important. The chances of being able to drill this wood to less than half a millimetre's accuracy is, or you know, perhaps a little bit better than half a millimetre. Certainly a quarter of a millimetre, I don't think it's just impossible to get the drilling perfect, because this is a very tight grained material, and there's a massive difference with this spruce between the strength of the autumn wood, which is brown, you know, a darker brown, and the summer wood, which is a lighter brown. The summer wood's very soft, the autumn wood's very hard, and as the guitar gets, as this wood gets older, that just increases. So it's one of the reasons why it's really actually very difficult to drill very well in softwood like this. So yeah, that's marked up. It's not ideal using a tunematic bridge with a fan fretboard, because when you adjust the intonation, it actually changes the position of the strings in a not the perfect way. But as I said earlier, or maybe in a previous take, the intonation is so good on a multi-scale guitar that I've hardly ever had to adjust these the line of these at all. So we're talking tiny fractions, which to all practical, in a practical sense, have no great bearing. I think, to be honest, it makes a lot more difference how you play the guitar, how you touch the strings when you're playing it. Makes more difference than these tiny little micro fractions. And although the ideal is to be deadly accurate, the reality is that the guitar can sound really beautiful, even if it's a tiny fraction inaccurate. And it could very well be the character of the guitar as well. It's one of the things. I mean, if you wanted all this stuff to be totally perfect, you might as well get a machine to make the guitar, which of course you can do, and they are brilliant machine-made guitars. So there we go. Guitar politics for you. I'm going to drill those. I think I might pilot drill them first with some small drills, and then I'll work up to the only one that I've got that's the perfect size is this really long drill bit, which I've sharpened up especially for the job, but it's not ideal for cutting a neat hole in softwood, so I'll just make sure that it's only a tiny bit it's going to cut. One good thing though is that having that long shaft like that makes it much easier to work out the correct direction, because you have longer line of sight, easy to see it. bridge, not the bridge, but the tail piece will be less angled. You could have it completely straight, but you don't want it to be completely straight actually, because of the angle of the bridge here. It changes slightly the gap between the strings. The strings are slightly closer together on this than they would be on if it had been completely straight. So it works very well on the other guitar, so I'm going to do the same thing again. So those are the new marks. The new distances are there. I'm not sure how far apart they're supposed to be. Again, I'm just going to measure on another guitar. Okay. Perhaps it's 8 centimetres. I've got the actual bridge hanging up here. No, tailpiece, I mean. So, is 81.5. That should be the distance between those two marks. That's exactly what it is. So I did it by eye, and then I checked it with mathematics, and that's the way I like to do it, because I always have problems with the mathematics. And if I wasn't filming it, I probably wouldn't bother checking it with mathematics, because if it looks right, it probably is right. It's easier to do it lower down when you're drilling. It's easier to see it. It's quite good to have a bit more speed for that last bit, because I think that cuts the fibres better. They're just as deep, those ones. I'm going to be doing some painting on these bodies that I've been making the last couple of days. That's why I wanted to get this one done to this level. Now, I I've got one humbucker for this guitar. I've got another one, but that's an active humbucker, EMC. No, an EMG they're called. But I don't think I'm going to bother with that because I don't want to have the extra electronics. So now that I've got these things in the correct positions, it's a nice humbucker to go there. That's from a Godin guitar. I think possibly they're made by Seymour Duncan actually. It's a kind of slightly cheaper version of their normal custom. I think it's a custom or something. No, they sound very good. It's 7.92 ohms. Was it kilo ohms on that one? Alnico magnets. That fits nicely. So I need to drill for the controls. Now, so far this guitar has been made with an earlier body. This was a kind of test body, partly to do with the ergonomic, using this kind of ergonomic guitar. So this one has the same thing, but actually that's just it's cut out at the back. So you can play it on your right knee and yet still get the kind of more like the classical guitar position, which is much more comfortable. So this is for playing the guitar sitting down. You can actually lean back slightly and it's very well balanced. Anyway, now that those holes are done, I need something for the socket, which I think can come out of the front at that point. That's nice. Put that one there. Just do that by eye. That's a nice. I don't like the sockets coming out here because again it interferes with playing the guitar. Only 2 minutes of tape left, so. And then one volume control is all we had so far. No tone control. So I'll just put that there. What would be a good idea is to have them all in the same line, so that I can drill them both with the same drill. So if I make a straight line from the corner of that humbucker to here, there's a knot in the wood here, so I don't want it to be there. I think I'll put it here. The volume control. And then there's space to put in a tone control later if you want. To be careful with that kind of thing because you don't know. Some people like these things to be far further away from the strings because if they strum the guitar they might hit it. Maybe I could do it like that instead. Have the socket here, tone control there. Not tone control, the volume control. If you turn down the volume on one of these things without any, if you don't use a capacitor, it actually gets softer. You lose the top. You lose the high frequencies anyway. So you can use it like a tone control as well. I'm going to reach that far. Maybe not even that far either. So that's as far as it will go. access to the volume control. I might have to extend this. Which will mean a little bit of welding or something clever. There we go, straight in the hole, that's very good. That one too. Fits. So actually I can go all the way through that one. I'm at the point where I start to mark out where the control cavity is going to be cut, using the centre line I've made where the actual controls have been drilled through, or the position of the actual controls, so the cavity will be parallel to those lines. So here I'm using Forstner bits to remove some of the wood, and then I go on to route out the cavity using an overhead router, just freehand, which is not filmed. At this point we've picked up the progress after I've made a little wooden cover for the control cavity. Like carving the body, the angle grinder comes in handy with these with flap wheels in them. I think this is a 40 grit. I also have a blade which is like a chainsaw, which is slightly more aggressive. Skipping forward a little. Recessed into the ends of the little lid, I've put a couple of neodymium magnets, and down in the body of the guitar there are a couple of nails, so it just pops in place and is held there by the magnets. So a little bit more fine treatment of that. The cutaway on this point at the back of the guitar is for resting on the right leg, so you can have the guitar in the classical guitar holding position while sitting in a chair. Since this is a prototype guitar, the neck has already been used, or at least had holes put in it with the previous body shape.
So I want to fill up those holes, and I'm just quickly cutting a few dowels in this little section using the trick with the metal drill box. So you just start with a larger size, and then you get progressively smaller and smaller, and then you just can carry on making your dowel whatever size it needs to be to fit in the holes. So I'll glue those to fill the holes before I make the new ones, which will be based on the positioning of the metal back plate.
I'm going to put in one of these in each place to screw on the neck with. So I just want to get rid of the old holes so that they don't mess up the drill when it finds its right place. I'd like this. Oh no, I can't do that. I've done the scale length now. I can't change it. Thank God, I realised.
Mistakes are more or less abounding now because I just use a sight line to mark up the back plate, and because I'm not so sure of myself in this instance, I drill it using a very small drill bit.
It's right on the edge.
In case it's wrong.
Not very big margins here. Well, I'm not really too happy with that because it could be better that way. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it a different way now. I might actually just plug those holes like I did the other ones and try again using the plate on the inside. So we'll get there in the end. There's not very much difference, but enough difference, I think, to warrant doing it again. I'm going to try a different technique this time and use a hand drill. As long as the old holes are within the circle, it doesn't matter drilling again.
With these things done, the next stage is to paint the guitar.
Do that again.
Jeg tror mamma kom.
I'm not quite sure which is which. I don't know if I'm going to catch that thread. Maybe need a stepping drill for that. I think it might maybe need a bigger hole. I'm not sure I was going to go for gold hardware though, really. I've got this round one. But the difficulty is the depth, the length of the part here. So that's all soldered up, so it's kind of ready to go, but I think I was going to use that one and just But I'm surprised I haven't got a silver one like that. Difficulty with these, so to make new threads on them, or lengthen the threads or something. Need to drill a hole for that. Come another strap locking thing there. Perhaps polished up the silver a little bit. Kind of in a way you have to mask out the work because that's not varnished. I wasn't sure I don't think I'm going to varnish it actually. Let's lower that down a little bit. Test that, I suppose. Just wanted to make sure that worked. Okay, that was the right one then. That's the neck. check that, shall we? Seems to work. Right, both at full blast, so 10 pointing this way. Let's just do a little guitar comparison. I think these are the same pickups actually. Pretty similar. This last time I had strings on, I did a bit of work on the fretboard there. Don't know if this crown will work. I think it might be too large to gauge. I've been using these Roto Sound strings the last couple of years. I think they're really good. They give you 2 high E strings in the bag, which is really good because they're pretty much the only ones that break when I play. I don't do very much string bending really. So, I've got these little files here for doing exactly this job. I've never used them, so I don't know if they're any good. So I have to adjust. Oh, that's going to take forever. I've got this bone nut that I've made. I don't think this microphone and this camera is going to really do very representative sound recording, but I can tell you a little bit about how I've done this guitar. I've just got 2 humbuckers which are split, coil split. That's the neck pickup. Put the I'll put the volume on 4. That's it, split. So it's neck pickup split. Now neck pickup humbucker. Split. So that's on full blast on that. Right, now this is the neck pickup. There's a humbucker. And then there's a single coil. So that's quite a lot quieter. It's not quite as close to the strings, but I think it's close enough. I don't have anything to measure it with, but the front pickup is about 5mm and the back part of the pickup is about 7. I think the thing of single coils work well with this Fender amp, but I'm going to have to turn it up for that. So there's no tone control on any of this, but that's how I like it. You can play both humbuckers at the same time. Turn it down again to 5. So if you want it to be more creamy sounding, you just turn the volume down, and it gets creamier and creamier. So if you want your jazz tones, put them down to about 5. That's both humbuckers. And it stays, funnily enough, I don't know why, but the same output, even if you turn one of the microphones off. So you just get that move. For example, I switch off the back one, move to the front. So even as a humbucker it's a bit quieter, but that's because of the angle of the body. It's mostly that front part of the pickup that's near the strings. The back part it isn't. I'd have to somehow splay the pickup to get it just right. And there's no right or wrong really, because it just means that you're getting more of a kind of semi-single tone, single coil tone, when the back half of the humbucker is further away from the strings. It doesn't matter, it just gives the guitar a unique sound. So it's very creamy. If you turn up the volume and keep that volume down on the guitar, you have that nice soft. So I don't think you really need tone pots, tone controls. So the bottom's out a bit on the stretch there. That's a bit high, that one. I've had this guitar put together before, so that's partly why it's been quick to put together today, because I have had it all set up before, so the wiring was semi-done and I clipped it out again. So there was testing underway while I was making the guitar. I was testing. I tried a different way of doing the bridge, which didn't work. So I've got some remnants of that, because I still have these ferrules on the back for a different kind of bridge. And then there's these holes here which are they're for bolting this bridge through the body. But I'm quite pleased with that. That's fine. Nice to play. It's got a very thin neck. I think they're jumbo frets. And silver details. Stop markers in silver. Details on the top in silver. Nice spurs or tuners. Fan frets, of course. It's got the Fender scale here and the Gibson scale there. That's the difference. comfortable. I have that same on my guitar, which was kind of the same but more of a prototype, the same thing. They both have this cutout here for playing the guitar in that position, which I quite like. It's as if you're wearing a strap but without wearing a strap. And it's the same setup. But this one doesn't have. This has just medium frets, or maybe even small frets. I prefer that myself. It's got quite a lot thicker neck. And you can't split the pots on this one, but we can do a test comparison. Neck pick up on full blast. Just try the other one, same thing. Neck pick up on full blast. It's actually a little bit hotter, this one.